Alright, so CD Projekt Red has finally dropped a teaser trailer for the upcoming Cyberpunk expansion that is set to release in 2023, which is officially called Phantom Liberty. There are quite a few tiny little details to spot in the trailer, so we're doing something we haven't done on the channel for years, that being a trailer analysis. This video is quite exciting for me, so without further ado, let's roll the intro. Alright, so we start off in a scene of a Chevron pulling up to a large, heavily guarded Militech fortress, which is built along the edge of Stadium in-game, as we can see in the background, with a number of Militech personnel on patrol. We can confirm that they're Militech not just by the yellow color scheme and the massive Militech logo on the base, but also the small Militech logo on the pouch seen on the soldier in the foreground. Speaking of which, looks to be a Militech robot and not a human soldier, and they're just holding a Nakota D5 Copperhead, so no new weapons seen here or anywhere else in the trailer. I'd imagine there will be a number of new weapons in the expansion, but we won't be seeing that for quite some time. This is also an all-new location alongside Stadium, so it looks like at least part of the expansion will be taking place in or next to Pacifica with the new district. All throughout the trailer, it seems like the new district is likely the unused area blocked off around Pacifica, which is almost a mini city itself. We can also see that this might not be purely a Militech base and could be an exterior security to enter this area, as we see what looks to be a number of civilian-looking NPCs being processed at the gate. We can even see a group of 3 that almost give me Maelstrom vibes, with the classic red glowing cyberware that they're most known for on their face. We then switch to a sequence where we're riding through a new location, which does give close to Pacifica vibes. Not only do we see a unique lit up building, but also what looks to be some sort of statue out front with the same colored lighting as the building, so this does seem like it might be a landmark or important location. Another odd thing I want to point out is that this does seem to be an entirely new car that V is riding in, that or it's one that we can't acquire. And you might be wondering how I know this, and it's because I went in-game and spawned each and every vehicle to look at the side sensor, and not a single one even comes close to matching it. The interior and exterior that we can see here are seemingly unique. So just to double check, I ran around for about 30 minutes looking at random cars, and once again, I couldn't find anything that came close. So my bet is on this being a new car. That said, if any of you can debunk me, I'll gladly pin your comment. We then enter a new interior location, pushing mechanical arms out of the way, bringing us into a little mini market with a good number of people. We can only clearly make out the Gunshop with a massive arsenal, with a Militech Minotaur and what looks to be a new form of robotic or mech behind or above it. Now, unfortunately, at the Gunshop, there isn't any new weapons that we can make out. All that we can really spot are things like the Militech M179 Achilles, which isn't new. That said, there does seem to be a large human-sized firearm with a Militech logo on it behind the vendor, and speaking of the vendor, they're wearing a neon hollow poncho, which it's cool to see some more of this clothing being used in-game. It's still not something that we, as the player, can wear though. So maybe that'll change. Beyond that, we can spot a few other noteworthy things, such as the bin that we can throw people in, so there might be a sequence here that we're tasked to kill people, the little office above the gun vendor where we can see someone on their phone, and then an NPC that looks like they're trying to draw a crowd to sell things. So a good mix of different NPC behaviors, which is good to see. Next up, we're in a very dark sequence of what seems to be deceased Secret Service or their equivalent, lying over top a logo, that being the seal of the President of the new United States, that being the NUSA, with a number of documents, magazines, and books scattered about. So there was a large struggle. This very much seems like a set piece where we come across this location to find them dead in what seems like a bunker. Then we get into a more spicy sequence with a destroyed and burning structure that seems to be connected to the scene at the end of the trailer, which you'll understand when we get there. Again, we're within the rubble of the location next to the stadium, which is in the general Pacifica area. I say this as we can see the cranes and buildings in the background, as well as the fact that the crash took place at the stadium. We can also spot 2 Militech Manticores, which we can tell not only by the design, but also the 551 on the back yellow wings. And before we play out this scene, I do want to also point out the one figure that we can spot in the far distance. Whether this is why Militech is dropping in to say hello, we'll have to wait and find out. And then we get to see the badass booster drop in, much like the Max Tac scene, with a superhero landing and all, so Militech isn't messing around. And as we see now, Militech is certainly not on our side, as we're fighting off several Militech personnel and a Minotaur in what looks like a very classy looking hotel setting with a large graffiti on the stained glass, which does seem to have quite a bit of prominence in this scene. We also do spot what looks to be a biohazard cloud, similar to the new effect on the Divided We Stand iconic in patch 1.6, but this was likely caused by the biohazard grenades that are already in the game. Also, just because it's relevant to something we see in the next clip, note that the player has monowire, which is visible on the player's wrist, so when you see cyberware on the wrist in the next clip, just know it means nothing. We then see a very beautiful combat sequence in a greenhouse using the VST-37 power shotgun, which was added in patch 1.6 and is being used against Scavengers, a gang that seemed like they were going to have more prominence than they did in the main game, so we could be seeing them quite a bit more in this expansion. Again, we're unfortunately not going to see any new weapons in this teaser, so nothing else to spot here. That said, I will say this is one of my favorite looking scenes in the trailer. We once again get another interesting scene with V sneaking with a katana behind what seems like yet another Militech soldier guarding something with a mounted weapon. As to the holographic wall behind them, this makes for quite a unique location that doesn't look familiar, so it seems that just about everywhere in this teaser is an all-new or expanded location. We then see our very first prominent story character for the expansion, which, based off her classy political appearance and NUSA flag handkerchief, it could either be the president of the NUSA, vice president, or just someone else with political prominence. But we very well could be looking at President Myers for the first time in game, who, just for a bit of backstory, was the previous CEO of Militech. So that could be the reasoning behind the heavy Militech presence seen in the trailer. She also looks to be handing over a shard of something. Whether this is from the crash or something else, it's uncertain, but interesting nonetheless. As for the background, we can once again spot the burning rubble, and again, this district does indeed seem to be situated right next to Pacifica. As I said previously, it very much seems like this is the locked out city district that can be seen in game that is unfinished. And now we get to see the final scene, where we can see a form of hoverjet, potentially NUSA, coming in for a crash landing after seemingly being shot down, right over top of V, who just so happens to be on top of the stadium in Pacifica. We can also see a new character that looks to be on the Engram, as made clear from the visual distortion effects and the 0 Fs given about the jet about to smash into them. How this plays out with the story and Johnny will be very interesting to say the least. There's a lot of speculation that this is Songbird, one of the characters a part of the expansion leak from last year, and that is very feasible. While the appearance is quite a bit different than seen in the data mine files, the same explanation as could be made for President Myers' appearance changing could be made here. These were likely just rough drafts or random characters used as placeholder for characters not yet in the game, so an appearance change is more than plausible. And one final interesting thing to spot here, which is more likely a view distance thing rather than a meaningful change, that being that Megabuilding 4 is missing the no entry holo signs that are present in game. But as I mentioned, this is probably a low distance thing, as they do disappear when you're quite far away from the building in game. It then cuts to the logo reveal for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty in front of the burning rubble and the NUSA flag in the background, which then glitches to a number sequence which runs through the following numbers: 1, 74, 249, 1994, 2004, 2007, 2010, 2013, 2020, 2021, 2077, and finally 2023. The final of which is the release year for the expansion, which, as seen on screen and mentioned in previous videos, will only be coming to the Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, PC, and Stadia. So it will not be coming to previous gen consoles. Now, as for the dialogue that occurs during the trailer, it's a woman, presumably President Myers or whoever the lady is in the trailer, getting us to take an oath for the NUSA. The trailer then closes out with Johnny Silverhand, who, yes, Keanu Reeves is reprising the role, telling us that the oath was a bad idea.
Repeat after me. I, V, do solemnly swear.
I, V, do solemnly swear
that I shall faithfully serve the new United States of America.
That I shall faithfully serve the new United States of America.
On behalf of all Americans, I thank you for your service.
You know, taking that oath. Bad idea.
I love the amount of mystery, and it sounds like there's going to be a good number of twists in this expansion, which they've said is going to be major since this will be the only one released for Cyberpunk 2077. It should also be interesting to see if it ties in with any of the upcoming overhauls and reworks that they're going to be adding to the game. Which, if you missed that video and want to hear more about the major reworks being done to the game ahead of the expansion, be sure to check that video out on screen. But that's it for this video. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, this is Apoqsi, signing off.